It's Rock 30, Bill and Jay's excellent podcast, with your hosts, Jay Odom and Billy Quinton. Our guest this evening is Nick Harris. Let's roll.
All right, welcome to Rock 30, Bill and Jay's excellent podcast. I'm Billy Quinton.
I'm Jay Odom.
And we are excited to have podcast officially number 30. This is season 2, and it is episode 8. So, Jay, we're cruising along here. We're already at 30 episodes. People didn't think we'd make it to 2 episodes, and here we are with 30 episodes. And we are very excited to bring in Nick Harris to join us here for our very first ever Zoom podcast. We've already had trouble. We've already had technicality problems. Nick had to help us out a little bit, so we've already made the guest work. And so we're going to have to pay him. But anyway, I want y'all, here's what I'm going to do. Here's how I'm going to start it. I want everybody to picture it. I think it was 2018, right, Nick? Your senior year was 2018, wasn't it?
It was. That's when I graduated, at least.
Okay. Let's go 2017 then, because it's football season. We're at Wilkerson Sanders. We're in the booth, and there's this young whippersnapper that comes into the booth with me and David Sweet that Chris Curtis had told us this guy really wants to do broadcasting. He's pretty good. He knows a lot of stuff. Can he join y'all? He's helped with the Hawk broadcast. He'd like to join in with the Rockwall one. We're like, sure. He comes in, hangs out with us. Already you can tell he's different than any other high school kid that's joined us in the booth. And then before you know it, we kind of say, okay, well, how about you do halftime for us? He's like, sure. He jumps right in with both feet and kills it. Then it gets to the point that me and David are worried we're going to lose our jobs. Okay. Nick is killing it. And so it is so great to have Nick Harris join us now. And I'd like to think I'm the reason he's had all this success with those 3 games that he joined us. I believe it was 3 or 4. And so if it wasn't for me, Jay, Nick would probably still be flipping burgers somewhere. But now here we go. We got Nick Harris, who is the Cowboys beat writer for the Fort Worth Star-Telegram. Welcome aboard, Nick.
Hey, I appreciate it, guys. And no, those reps were super valuable back in 2017. It's funny because you guys were asking for pictures, and I had to hit up my mom because I know she keeps all of them. And there was one specifically that I remember at South Lake Carroll's Dragon Stadium, September 15th, 2017. I think that was the first time I'd hopped on with you and David. And man, it was awesome that year. I had so much fun, and I appreciate you guys for that.
Yeah,
would you say they shaped your career to where you are today? You'd be nowhere without them.
I'm really not joking. Yeah, in a way, absolutely. I'm really not joking because those reps were so valuable at that point in time, man. I had it was a struggle to find, a mic to get on, and I just needed the opportunity. I needed the platform, and you guys provided it. I mean, it was fantastic.
We definitely have to give a shout out and a lot of the credit to Chris Curtis, because Chris did so much when you were there in high school and helped you out tremendously. And I know he still keeps in touch, and y'all, he still, is in contact with you, and I hope helps out. But Chris was the one that was like, this guy has something. And so talk a little bit about your relationship with Chris Curtis. Chris is the sports marketing director, for those that don't know, and at Rockwall ISD, and he's been there forever. But talk a little bit about Chris and what he's done for you.
Yeah, I'll put a little context into my relationship with Chris, or at least when I met him. So I had moved to Rockwall ISD when I was a sophomore in high school. I was going to Rockwall Heath, and I had just left a school that I had gotten ingrained with. I had really good friends at that old school, and then I go to this new place, and that sophomore year was rough. I'm not gonna lie. I mean, it was a new place. It was a lot of people, and just trying to find my footing, I guess you could say. And it was about April of that school year. I guess Chris Curtis had caught wind that I existed, and he came down to Rockwall Heath and pulled me out of class one day and we went to the high school gym, and Coach Waters was literally holding practice, and we went over to the side gym, and I could barely hear him over the sneakers squeaking and the balls bouncing. And he's like, "Do you want to be a part of like student broadcasts and things?" And I'm like, "Yeah, that'd be great." And anyway, I went home that day and I told my mom, and I was like, "Man, like finally, like this is something that I can find myself in, and find some footing." And I was like, "Man," and I'm sure there's like some other kids in this program too. It's gonna be great. And then that next summer, I show up, and I had to do a swim video, or a video about the swimming center, the aquatic center right next to
Yes,
Wilkerson
yes.
Sanders. And he was like,
We
"I'm gonna
call
let
we
you run
call
the
it the
show."
aquarium. That's what we and David call it. We
The
call it the
aquarium.
aquarium. Yes.
I'll take it, the
Yes.
aquarium. And he
Yes.
let me run the show. It was like July 2016. And he said, "I need you to go down there. I need you to interview the swim coach. And I need you to interview some people just about this aquatic center, and make us a video for it for our YouTube page." And I'm like, "Okay, cool." I was like, it won't be too much pressure. I'll be able to ask some other people that are there and work it out. I get to the aquatic center, and I quickly realize I'm the only student in the program. And I'm like, "Oh no, I got to really figure this out here." And, there were some editing hurdles that I had to make with that aquatic center video. I can guarantee you it's still up on that Rockwell ISD YouTube page. I just found it a couple of years back, and I was cracking up at it. But if you had asked me at the time, I thought I made a Spielberg type film. It was fantastic.
See, that is so cool. Well, Chris is all in. He's done so well for the school district. He does everything. For those that don't know, when you see all the videos and the social media and all that stuff that's promoting all the teams, that's Chris Curtis behind all that. And in fact, I've got media day tomorrow with Chris. I'll be
Yeah.
up to media day tomorrow for Rockwall because the broadcasters will jump over there and we'll do our little bits and all that kind of stuff. So shout out to Chris Curtis and all he's done and has been doing. He's been there forever, and it is just fantastic. Okay, Nick, let's go back. You talked about what school were you at before you came to Rockwall Heath?
I was at Allen, so while it was big, much bigger, Rockwall Heath was still big in my view and my lens, because I had grown up in Chapel Hill in East Texas. It's a small, well, now it's a 4A school. At the time, it was like a small 3A. And when I moved to Dallas, I was like, man, these big high school campuses, they're basically college campuses. Rockwall Heath was just another step in that.
Okay, and then let's talk a little bit. So, how did you start getting interested in broadcasting and all that kind of stuff? I mean, of like early age. I mean, because I know that I have
Yeah.
my little nerdy tendencies when I was little watching games. I think you probably have a little bit of the same story, but tell us how you got interested when you knew this was going to be something you wanted to do.
Literally, my earliest memory is Saturday morning. I'm probably 3 or 4 years old, and I'm sitting on the couch with my old man, and we're watching Sports Center. And I mean, that's kind of a microcosm of my love for sports, that it started that early on. And throughout my early years, of whether it was football, baseball, then eventually getting into basketball and some other things as well, soccer, as I got into my teenage years. Whatever it was, I was just so invested in it. I wanted to learn more about it. I wanted to, be able to predict things. And I think I was a gambler before gambling was a thing for my 8-year-old self. But it was, I was so enthralled with anything that came about it. And so I wanted to play all these sports. So played all these sports, quickly realized I was not going to be good enough to make it to the pros. So I was like, you know what, how can I find a career that I can remain in it? And on the flip side, I had always been a really strong writer, and I have to give credit to my mom on that sense, and I have to give credit to some of the teachers I had when I was super young that invested in me as a writer. And I found an opportunity to merge those two things. And I was about 14 when I made the decision. I was like, I want to be either a sports journalist or a sports broadcaster, and if I can do both, then like that'll be the dream. And that was 11 years ago now, which is crazy to think about. But I was really blessed and fortunate to realize what I wanted to do so early on.
So give some credit to some of the teachers that you remember, like especially like at Rockwall Heath when you're in high
Yeah.
school. I'm sure there's some that stand out that really helped you along.
Yeah, I have to give credit to my second grade teacher. It wasn't Rockwall, but it was in Tyler in East Texas. Her name was Miss Walker, Robin Walker. That was probably the one that really kind of formed my love for writing. But coming to the Rockwall sides of things, I had a journalism teacher early on at Rockwall. Her name was Lindsay Coyne. I think she's been married since, so it's Lindsay Armette, and she's in a different school district. But she was really strong in helping me in that area, as well as Misty Rayson. She was big at helping getting me reps broadcast wise. We won a national competition my senior year in that AV class that I was in, and she was a really big driving force, and always kind of pushing us the extra mile. Sometimes it kind of ticked us off, but I think it was all in good spirit and all in good heart because we won at the end of the day. So you can't have a good team without a great coach, and that's certainly what she was. Gosh, trying to think of some others. It's really pulling some hairs out of my.
Let's go back to Misty. I know her. I got to work with when I taught for
Yeah.
about 3 years. I did audio, video, and graphic
Yeah.
design, and got to know Miss Rayson. She is outstanding,
Yeah.
and she is. If I don't know if there's a better teacher out there
Yeah.
because she will make you do the work. She lets you know why you're doing the work. She ain't going to
Yeah.
let you give up on the work.
Yeah.
And I just love because she was basically the opposite of me. And so when students would go from my class to her class, I'd see them later where they would take her class and they'd look at me like, well, this ain't nothing. Like, I go, yeah, you're learning stuff over there,
Yeah.
you know? So she is
She
outstanding.
she was not afraid to slap a zero on that grade book. Let
No,
me tell you,
no.
if you were one day late, that zero's
Uh-huh.
in there and it's staying in there. You got to figure out how to get it back. And that was probably the moments where we were like, "What the hell's going on here?"
Right.
But it woke us up, and that's the real world. Looking back 7 years later,
Mhm.
those zeros in the grade book are very low on my list of problems that I faced in my adulthood.
That's great.
Now, during this time, so that was, you said '08. When were you in high
18.
school? 18.
18.
Yeah, you're young, man. So at this point, things had already started shifting really to online as
Yeah.
far as the way that things were broadcast. Newspapers kind of shifted online. As you've kind of progressed, how have you seen that continue to progress?
Yeah, and that's an
Um,
ever evolving balance that we try to find in the industry, just because it's always changing. I mean, we could look back to when I first started covering the Cowboys, which was I'm going into my third season now, so about 2 years ago. There's already been big changes since then, and so it's just having to be flexible and be ready to attack a changing landscape, and that's kind of there's a beauty in it. There's a beauty in that struggle sometimes because I think the people that are able to stay level headed and keep walking with it, I think those are some of the best in the industry. Now me, I work for a newspaper and I work for a small newspaper, but we understand our strengths, and it really benefits the worker at the end of the day, being me. It benefits the writer because it allows us to kind of expand our creativity. It allows us to do what we need to do without having to worry or stress at the end of the day, like, hey, is this paper not going to be around a couple years from now? I've never had those stresses just because I think the leadership is so strong with what we have at the Fort Worth Star Telegram. This isn't a pub, but it's in a way, in a sense, it's you have to be available to be able to work with the changing landscape, and if you're not, you're going to get left behind. And that's probably one of the bigger things that I tell people that are young coming in. I say that like I'm not, but some guys that are like graduating college that are coming into the industry and they're asking questions. It's like you have to always be willing to adapt and change, because if you're not going to get a job. And I've seen really, really talented people not make it because they weren't available to adapt, and that's it's sad. It's a sad reality, but you have to be willing to do it in this industry for sure.
Let's walk a little bit through your career. You talked about you started out with being online and stuff because you started out at Yahoo, right? That was your first big gig, right? Would you say that would be the first big one?
That was my first big break. I'll say that was my first full-time salary job.
Mhm.
I'll kind of walk you through it. So when I graduated Rockwall Heath, I went to the University of Texas, and I'm a first gen college student, so I had to figure out how to pay for it on my own and move along with it. And I was like, look, I need to get a job, but I don't want to take away from time that I could potentially be interning here or doing this here, because I had already kind of laid that groundwork and foundation in the high school when I was in high school. So I found a job for $300 a month covering Baylor football recruiting, and Man, that was about as snooze fest as a snooze fest could be looking back. But if you had asked me in the moment, I thought I was covering the Dallas Cowboys. I mean, it was, and you have to treat anything like how you treat anything is how you treat everything. I'm a big believer in that. And, I wanted to attack that and I was able to. And I worked my way up from covering Baylor to covering Texas. And I got raised to $1,000 a month. And I was like, oh my God, my rent's paid for. I'm great. I was living lavish. And, from there, I did end up getting a full-time job covering Texas at 24/7 Sports for a very brief moment before I got the call from Yahoo to be a national recruiting analyst. And that was a huge opportunity for me. It came at a very interesting time. I had just moved back home after COVID had hit. COVID was pretty tough financially on my family and I. And I came back. I transferred to North Texas. And I was literally in the middle of a class at North Texas when I got the call that I got the job at Yahoo Sports. And it was kind of a fork in the road. I had to make a decision of, okay, this is a national recruiting analyst job. I'm going to be traveling about 20 out of the 30 days of a month. I can't do school on top of this. So I either have to quit school now and go full steam ahead at this, or, say no and maybe be okay with one day realizing that I'm not going to get that opportunity again. So, I took it. I took that opportunity. I took that risk, and very happy that I did. And I don't have the degree at the end of the day, and it's something that I'm still working towards getting, very slowly, but it's a work in progress. And when I got that opportunity with Yahoo, it was very eye opening because it opened me to what all of these industries are, and the sports journalism and covering college football recruiting. I got to meet so many different people and walk so many different ways of life by going to a middle of nowhere town in Louisiana to cover this tight end who's going to Alabama, or middle of West Texas to go cover this receiver that's going to Texas, up in the Panhandle. Some of those stories and some of those trips are some of the things that I will always take with me. There's a couple of stories that I don't think could ever be beaten, no matter how great this current gig ends up being. But after a few years of that, I fell in love with it for sure, and it was something I wanted to do long term. I did kind of understand though that it wasn't necessarily sustainable. I want to have a family and kids. I don't necessarily need it right now. Actually, I don't need it right now. Not at all. Do not need it right now.
Don't do it until Micah gets signed, and then
exactly. Yeah, definitely. Definitely don't need it right now, but I knew that one day I wanted to, and I was like, man, this way of life is not sustainable. I was only in my bed about 10 nights out of the month, and you add that up, and there's a lot of things you miss. There's a lot of family time you miss, a lot of friends that you just kind of fall out with, or not fall out with, but you just kind of drift from. And I wanted to find something that kind of brought me back closer to home, and it arrived in my lap a lot sooner than I could have imagined. And I had a really good friend that worked at the Dallas Cowboys I had met when I was in high school. And he said, hey, we have this beat writer position open. I think you'd be good for it. You should take the interview. And I'm like, yeah, we'll see. Okay, I'll take the interview. Took the interview and I loved it. And I was like, yeah, I want to be here. And they ended up hiring me in April of 2023. Literally, my first day on the job was the first day of the draft. So whenever you think about Mozzie Smith not performing well for the Cowboys, just remember that they had already put their stock into me that day. So it worked out pretty well. I can't play defensive tackle, although I think I could stop the run a little bit better. We'll see. But that was a really cool opportunity for me. And it was something that allowed me to come closer to home. And, after about a year on that job, I got this opportunity with Fort Worth Star Telegram to cover it from the outside. And, this is where I want to be for sure. And, I have goals. ESPN would be an awesome dream one day. But, I'm also trying to look at where my feet are and trying to understand where I am and try to be grateful for that. And, I was able to land a side gig last year, being a broadcaster for the Texas Legends, the G League team for the Mavericks. So I'm able to have a really cool broadcasting job that I love, and then a really cool beat job that I love. I mean, I'm living the dream. I'm blessed and I'm grateful. I thank God for it every day.
Anytime you get to do something you love is pretty awesome.
It is.
It's very rare,
Right.
very rare. So.
It is. And I think Billy has some questions lined up for me about a specific job that I had in my early college days. It made me understand, truly what it means to love a job, because when you don't love a job, it's different.
So I really thought Nick would be having a career in the sandwich industry because I don't remember when, maybe like 6 years ago, 7 years ago. I don't know. Maybe, I don't know when it was exactly. I go to get me a sandwich at Subway over here on North Goliad. And I walk in and there's Nick and he's working. I knew he had gone to UT. Last night I heard he was at UT and he's killing it and all that. I'm getting updates from Chris Curtis. And there's Nick making sandwiches. It was just me and him too. If I remember right, it was you and me. There was nobody else in the restaurant. And I'm like, Nick. And you're like, yeah, hey, what's going on? And by the way, it was a good sandwich. I will say that.
Good to
Uh,
hear.
but at that point, what are your thoughts when you're sitting there going, man, I have these dreams, but we've all been there. We've all
Yeah.
been there where we've had to do what you got to do to
Yeah.
achieve the dream that we want. And so, first of all, let me ask you, how stressful is it to work at Subway? Because to me, it would be one of the most stressful jobs in the world to have to make somebody's sandwich in front of them and
Yes.
uh and get it right and then do all the little tricks with the wrap and the cut and all these things and everything else. So
Well,
walk
and
me
they're
through that.
always like wanting more of this, or they'll put a
Yes.
claw
Yeah.
over the.
Yes. Over the sneeze guard.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah. And it never is enough. That's too much lettuce. I want more cheese.
Yep.
And then the meat was always less. It was like, dude, give me something that I don't see through. I mean, you could tell it was already pre-done where you just pulled the little paper slip out and stuck it on there,
Yeah.
whatever. So, how long did you work at Subway and how tough was it?
Oh man, PTSD is just rocking through my brain at the moment. There was, let's see, I started working there in the summer of 2019, coming back from my first year in college. To be completely transparent, my last couple of months of my freshman year in college was probably one of the rougher parts of my adult life. It's just, that first year when you're out of the house, and you have to figure out how to make it on your own. You definitely go through your bumps and bruises, and those last couple of months, I was working a lot of jobs just trying to make it. And then when I came back for the summer, my parents had just bought that Subway on North Goliad,
Oh,
and
okay. Okay.
they said, "Hey, you can come work here, and we're not going to treat you any differently. You're going to be a worker, and but it's a job you'll have, and you can come and work it for the summer. You don't have to worry about finding a job or doing this, that, and the third, and kind of bending my back over backwards to trying to find something." I was like, "Okay, that's perfect." And so I worked, goodness, probably 55, 60 hours a week at that Subway.
Huh.
May have been some worker violations, to be honest. I might need to reach out to my parents about that, try to get some back pay. But
Make a
there was
claim.
about 55, 60 hours a week at that Subway on North Goliad during that summer. And then I carried it into COVID. Whenever I came back home from COVID, I was there for about another year. And so, I mean, it wasn't awful because I knew that it was at the very least I was able to contribute to my family at the end of the day. But whenever I was kind of getting home at midnight after opening and closing a Subway shift, oh boy, yeah, I'm telling you, it definitely made me appreciate my life a little bit more whenever I got my big boy job.
Don't we always have though those jobs or moments that when it's going rough for you, you can always look back at that and go, at least I'm not doing that.
Thousand
At least I'm
percent.
not there.
A
Yeah,
thousand percent. I was
yeah.
doing that, and whenever I was back home for COVID, I was doing DoorDash, and I was in a car that had no AC. And man, it was, those are the moments I really think about. Is when I'm sweating, my
Yeah.
expletive off, and
Could always
it
be
is,
worse. Could
it
always
could always be worse. It could always be worse.
That is funny. I just was always impressed with that you have to. Did you ever lose your temper? Did you ever like go, come on, man? I mean, I got to think there was customers that were just jerks.
Yeah, and I'm one of those people that I try to think of myself as chill, but if you really rile me up, you'll see a different side, and then I try to kill with kindness. That'll be like my first thing. So if it's like,
Okay, good.
really, you're gonna put that much chicken on my sandwich, and be like, yeah, would you like more? You can pay more. That'd be good too. So I had plenty of those. I had plenty
That's
of those.
great. That's great. Oh man. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about you're with DallasCowboys.com.
Mhm.
And I remember I go from seeing Nick making sandwiches to like it felt like, 2, 3 years later, there's Nick talking Cowboys draft on DallasCowboys.com, killing it. And it was great. Uh, what was that experience like? How often did you talk to Jerry and to the players and all that kind of stuff? I mean, how intertwined were you when you were there?
Yeah, pretty much every day. It was a little bit different during the off season, but Dallas Cowboys, they do a really good job of those two beat writer positions that they have. They do a really good job of keeping those roles organic because when I went into that interview, I was like, look, I grew up watching the Dallas Cowboys. At the end of the day, don't tell anybody. I'm a fan. But I am more serious about my job and doing it from an objective lens than I am about what I grew up loving or what I grew up watching. And I was like, I'm not going to be a propaganda machine. Like that's not going to be me. And I was like, if that's what this is, then like respectfully, I'll decline. I'm going to walk away from this, but I appreciate it. They're like, no, 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 it's the exact opposite. Like they allow us to do and say in reason pretty much everything anything we would like, as far as it's fair. And that was a really good job that I think our bosses did. Was you can say anything you want, but if that person comes to you, you have to be able to explain your thought process. And so were there a couple of times that I had to do that? Absolutely. But the access that we had, it was pretty similar to what the rest of the media had, because of those stipulations. But it was perfect. I mean, it was an opportunity to sit in the building, eat lunch next to these people, go on company retreats next to these people, but still at the end of the day, like I consider myself a part of media, and I try to look at it as much as I could with an objective lens. And, I feel like I was really able to. And whenever the Fort Worth Star-Telegram position came open, and I interviewed, I think they had some of the same questions. It's like, okay, so like, are you this propaganda machine? And I'm like, no, look at my work. Like, look at what I've done. Look at what I've said. And, they were dumb enough to hire me. So here I am.
Jay, do you have anything? I don't want to keep. I keep crying.
Well, so as you're working with the players and everybody kind of close up, you got some good stories as far as some of those guys just not wanting to talk to you? Some, I guess, better than others. Or were there some that never wanted to give you any info? How did that go?
So I definitely do have a story. I gotta think about how to phrase it without outing anyone. There was
Remember, we can do
a
some post editing if we need to. So
okay, noted.
Like he's going to trust us with that.
So Jerry Jones did this.
Jerry said this, and then
so there was this staffer, still here actually. There was this staffer that had a specific feeling about something that I had said on a podcast, like very briefly, and that's probably not a good omen since I'm here on a podcast, right?
Staffer as a player.
This was a staffer, so this was
okay.
Yeah, like not necessarily a coach, but he was on the staff. Let's
okay.
He was important. I'll say that.
Mhm.
We were landing in Carolina on a road trip, and I was sick as a dog on this road trip. Cowboys played the Panthers the next day at noon, and so I was really just trying to get into the hotel room, go to sleep, and get ready for the next day. And we were on the elevator in the team hotel. We had just gotten in, and I'm on the elevator with this person and a couple of other people. One of the other people that was on the elevator, his name was Nick, and he was my boss. Important context, because we get on the elevator and he goes, "Hey, what's up, Nick?" And I just kind of turn to him like, "Hey, what's up, man?" And he's like, "No, I'm not effing talking to you. I'm talking to him. Like, I don't have anything to say to you." And I'm like, the hell did I do? Like I'm just a sick man trying to get to his hotel room. And we get off on our floor, and of course, when I get to my floor, it's just me and him,
Right.
and nobody else. And we get off on the floor. And you know how like when you're in a hotel, you either go left or you go right based on where your room is. And so we split. We go left and right. The guy goes right, I go left, and I'm just like, okay. I put my AirPods back in, and I hear screaming like back down the hallway. And I'm like, what's going? Like, it's still not really clicking in my mind like that he's mad at me. I thought he was just kind of like, nudging on me because I was a rookie on the beat, and I was like, okay, I'll just take it, whatever. And I take my AirPods out, and he's just MFing me all the way down the hallway, and I'm just like, what? I was like, what's going on? Like, what do you want to talk about? Like, what do you want to talk about? And he goes in his room, and I'm like, okay, this is strange.
And you had no idea what this was about at that point?
To this day, still have no idea what it was about.
Really?
That's probably one of the stranger stories I've had, but I think that goes to speak to like, we were really able to say and do whatever we wanted to the point to where coaches were MFing us in hotel hallways before games.
So a lot of these guys, they've got their feelings on their sleeves, it sounds like. They're not
would be
thick-skinned.
You would be shocked how many thin-skinned people exist in the real world. Honestly, I mean that's something I have learned. I think early on in my adulthood is that there are still some sensitive people out there.
Even some high-profile people that should be used to it.
Absolutely,
they should be used to it, but they're still
Absolutely.
So how is that when you see that person now? What's it like?
So now that I've kind of learned his personality and who he is, and apparently that's just kind of he's kind of a hot rod. And he's like, whenever I went to people about this, like this thing happened, like this was crazy. He's like, yeah, that's him. You just he'll love you next week. And I'm like, okay. Sure enough, a couple weeks later, he came up to me like, hey, what's up, man? I'm like, get away from me, man. What are we
Really?
doing? Yeah, I mean that's just kind of how it is, man. It's strange. It's still to this day I have no idea what it was about. I've tried asking him, and he doesn't even remember. And I'm like, okay,
Oh,
whatever.
wow.
Yeah,
Any of
but
He's
the
done it numerous times, and probably.
say that again.
That means he's probably done it more times than once because if you don't
Absolutely,
remember and somebody else is
absolutely.
saying, yeah, hey, that's him.
Which he's better than me because I hold a grudge, and if I'm mad about something, I remember it
Yeah.
for years. I
Yeah.
remember it for years. That's my problem. But
Yeah.
on the
yeah.
flip side, I'll tell you a good story. Let me think. Um, Gosh, there was so Dak Prescott. He's really good with us. He's great with the media. When you talk to other team reporters around the NFL, it's really a blessing how much the quarterback of this team cares about the media and how much he gives us, either on the record or off the record. And I had just started dating my current girlfriend. This was about a year and a half ago, and he had just come up to me and just started talking about life one day. He's like, "Hey man, how you been?" I was like, "Yeah, I started dating this girl. Things are going well." And he's like, "Oh man, that's cool." A couple months later, he came up to me randomly. He's like, "Hey, how's you and your girlfriend?" And he knew her name, and I was like, "How the hell
That's
do you know her
cool.
name?" I was like, "How'd you know her name?" I never told him her name,
Yeah.
but that just goes to show you, I think the
Wow.
person behind the helmet for him. Somehow, some way, he learned her name and came back to me a couple months later and was like, "Hey, how's she doing?" And I was like, "Man,
That's
I
crazy.
appreciate that. I
That is so
appreciate
Yeah.
that."
cool.
So,
Well,
yeah,
Now
he
you,
seems like that kind of guy.
he really
yeah,
is.
I was
He
going to
really
say
is,
that.
and he
Yeah.
takes the criticism well too, because we have to
Yeah, he does.
criticize.
Yeah, he
We
does.
have to criticize at the end of the day. From some of the people that have been on the beat a lot longer than I have, they say he had to learn how to get accustomed to it, but when he did, like he respects us, he understands the job, and when his career's over one day, I certainly see him being a part of us and part of the media
Mhm.
for sure.
Yeah.
Now you mentioned on the record and off the record.
Yeah.
How does that work? Do they say, "Hey, don't, I want to tell you something. Don't write about this." Is it just a given? How does that work?
That is a tough balance too, because you never really know. But it's
Unless
now
they
when they
say off the record, Nick.
exactly,
Yeah.
and whenever they bring like the guys up to the podium, right, and the cameras are in front of them, obviously that's on the record, and we get Dak for about 15 to 20 minutes every week on Thursdays, and he gives us great stuff, and very rarely will he not answer a question, and he will only not answer a question unless it's like something super personal, or if it's like, hey, this is game plan related, we're not trying to give too much away. But other than that, like he'll really dive into it. He'll dive into the X's and O's schematics of it. He's been really good. But then all the other days when we're in the locker room just hanging out, he'll be at his locker, and you can walk up to him and be like, hey, this certain thing that happened in this game last week, like what exactly was that? And he'll break it down for you. And I mean, you're not going to go back and tweet all that out, because then there was probably some private information in there that you just kind of have to understand, but you can use it as context to when you're moving forward and you're talking about that one play, or you're talking about something that involved what that play looked like down the line. I'm trying to think of an example for that. It's not really one is popping in my head immediately, but you have to just kind of be a judge of it, of on the record, off the record. But it's a blurred line for sure, and people get in trouble every year about like crossing over that blurred line. That's why a PR team exists, is for that exact blurred line.
Right.
And you pretty good at knowing PR's feeding you bullshit.
Yeah, 100%. And
That's what they do,
fortunately,
right?
it really is. And fortunately, I at least I feel like I have a good relationship with the Cowboys PR people, so I understand their quirks a little bit, and what gets them going and what doesn't. And certainly, if there's an off the record thing that is either super personal or is schematic related, you're gonna get a phone call, and it could be 1 a.m. in the morning, and you better be ready to fight back. So yeah, it's an interesting line to walk.
And don't you think off the record is a lot more blurred now? Because in this day and age, everything seems to be on the record, no matter what somebody
Yeah,
tells you. And not just in sports, but just in
yeah,
life, where
yeah,
people
and
are telling things that they shouldn't be telling about some people.
I 100% agree, and it's kind of a part of the job that I see as kind of slimy sometimes, and I hate that part of the job, but it is part of the job. And I see guys give off the record info sometimes, and then I'll go to Twitter or I'll go read an article later, and I'll see it, very, subtly, not necessarily right out in front, but I'll see it subtly, and I'll be like, man, you shouldn't have done that. Like but because you put that out, I have to write something about it. And that's what makes the job a little difficult sometimes. And I've had to explain some things to players at times because of that exact scenario. It's just like, hey, if something gets written and it's a news headline, I have to write about it. And I'm if you tell me something, I'm not going to be the one to say it. If you say it's off the record, but if it does get reported, I have to be on top of that because that's my job at the end of the day. So like that's tough. That's a tough part of the job, and that's you have to be a people person at the end of the day to have this job, I think. And the people that are not people person, I think that's probably where they suffer a little bit, and just you have to have some sort of empathy with people because man, you put 53 men in a room and you send reporters into that room and say, hey, go figure out some stuff that's going on here. You're going to find out some pretty wild things, most likely. How you approach that information, that's up to you at the end of the day. But I think that's kind of the nature of our job sometimes, and it's strange. It really is.
When you're now obviously covering the Cowboys, you were with the Cowboys as far as DallasCowboys.com, but you could be open about stuff. How much did it change I'm a massive Cowboys fan. I'm a diehard,
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
I know it's hard, but
Billy would be a propaganda machine if he had.
I probably would. But here's what I'm getting to. I don't want to know that other stuff. I just want to know what's on the field.
Yeah.
Like, somebody will come to me and say, hey, did you hear about so-and-so, some player, got married to them and I don't care about that stuff.
I'm with you.
I want to know, are they playing Sunday? And why didn't they play better, or how well did they play, or whatever? Did this affect your fandom when you started working kind of more inside the team and stuff? How much did that affect you in your fandom?
That's a good question because when I covered Texas, I experienced it a little bit then too, because I had grown up a Texas fan, went to Texas, and then I started covering Texas, and it kind of beats the fandom out of you after a while. And it's not because of like anything you learn or anything that you're a part of. It's just like it becomes part of your job. It becomes your job. And again, I love my job. I'm not saying that I don't hold good feelings about it. It's just it's different. It's not no longer is it. Oh, I'm going to sit back and watch this Cowboys game on Sunday, and drink a beer with friends. Now it's like, okay, I need to watch every single little detail and I can't miss it. And if I do, that's my life.
Right. You've lost that component of just enjoying a game.
Exactly. And I still enjoy it, but it's different. It's a different enjoyment. And I'm glad that I now have the reference of being able to watch those Texas games on Saturdays today, because I still have that fandom. And I didn't know if I did anymore when I was covering them. And I think I feel that with the Cowboys for sure, is just because, I try my best to look at it with an objective lens and, try to be a good journalist and a good worker at the end of the day. But if you ask me right now, like, hey, are you a Cowboys fan today? I'd probably say no. I'd probably be like, yeah, I couldn't really pinpoint my fandom. But if you ask me 10 years after I retire, I'd be like, yeah, big Cowboys fan, and that's probably what it'll be. It's strange. It's a weird line to walk.
But to me, you compare it to the whole sausage, how they talk about it. I just want to eat sausage. I don't want to know how it's made. I don't want to see how it's made. Yeah. And that's where you just want it. And that's the way I am. Yeah. I had a chance to play basketball with a bunch of the older Cowboys of the 70s when I had a job and they were clients and all that. And it was great. I loved being around them. But there was a part of me when they started telling stories and inside things, and this guy was a jerk, and this guy did this. Like, well, I didn't want to know about that guy. Yeah. And so, I could see that. I could see how that could affect anybody, because you see that across the board with people that work with teams that they're clearly not fans anymore because they're in the inner workings now. And that'll change you.
This is reminding me of a story. A kid, a super talented soccer player, recently, it's a friend of ours, got to go work out with the pro team in Dallas. I can't remember their names. Who would be a pro soccer team that everybody?
Oh, it's Dallas.
Yeah. So he got to go hang out with some of those guys, and they went to lunch. And they were all just sitting down. He said the whole time they talked about insurance and getting better home rates. And he came back and he was like, Mom, I don't know. That's not so cool anymore.
Right.
But they're just regular guys. And like you're saying, you kind of get into that. And I could see how that hero thing could easily.
Yeah. Because you
Yes.
want to keep them at that distance because that's the way I spend my Sunday afternoons. And I want my Sunday afternoons,
Yeah.
and I
Yeah.
don't want it to be messed with. And because there's other things that I've gotten to do and be a part of that you become less of a fan because it becomes part of your job. So I could see that. So that leads us into your how off give us, I don't know how to frame this. Jerry Jones is the biggest enigma in sports, I think, to me, and to a lot of people, because to be blunt, he doesn't make sense, and then he does make sense at times, but then he doesn't. He's a great businessman, and then on other sides of it, you're like, I don't think that was a great business move. He was a great marketer, and then you're like, what's he thinking? What are your thoughts on Jerry Jones and just how he runs things and your relationship with him?
You cut out there for about 10, 15 seconds. I'm sorry,
Oh,
Billy. Can you paraphrase your question?
yeah, real quick. What's your relationship with Jerry Jones? How often are you
Yeah.
around him? And then he goes in and out on like, man, that's a great owner. Oh, he's got to be the worst owner, and he's so involved as an owner, unlike any other in sports, because he's also the GM, but he's also
Yeah.
stubborn. And as a fan, I'm so frustrated with him with the Micah Parsons thing right now, and it's really beating me down. Kind of explain what your thoughts are on what makes Jerry Jones tick, and what are your thoughts on your relationship with him?
Yeah, it definitely took a couple of years for Jerry to remember my name. I've definitely gotten some Nates and some Jakes and some from him, and I just take it on the chin. I'm like, hey, at least I appreciate you remembering my face. And then
Yeah,
You don't
now
correct him,
it's
right? You know,
yeah, now it's
correction.
starting to be Nick, and so I
yeah,
appreciate that. So I would say our relationship is great. He knows my name now, but
yeah.
he understands the media, and I know it's kind of something you immediately think of when you think of Jerry Jones, but it's really true. He understands the power of it. He understands, what our job is at the end of the day, and you could tell he's a fan at the end of the day too. Like he's a fan of the sport. He's a fan of the league. You'd be very surprised at how much content he actually does digest, and that goes to all of our stuff. Like I know for a fact he reads all of our stuff. And so it makes my job have to be very intentional because even if I put like this little 7 letter or 7 word sentence that might not mean a whole lot in the grand scheme of the article, it could be taken out of context and I have to be able to explain those things. He's an interesting person. Don't get me wrong. There are a lot of things about him though that I would say that people get wrong, and I think there's a lot of things that people get right that I think both sides would surprise you. What are some things that people would get right is a sense of using the media as a power, and that's certainly part of it. This negotiation with Micah Parsons, perfect example. Micah Parsons requested that trade last Friday. How many conversations has he had with the media? 2. How many conversations has he had with Micah Parsons since then? 0. So I mean, it's he definitely understands the power of it. He
Tool.
gets it, yeah, for sure. And I think his business savvy, it plays into his thinking a lot more than you would think. And like when you hear him sit down and go on these ramble, circling, type of answers to things that do not, correlate at all. If you really do dive into it at the end of the day, you kind of get an understanding of how his brain works and why he does certain things certain ways. And we'll take this Michael Parsons thing, for example, right? He's used this analogy a couple of times now of like, hey, when I bought the Cowboys back in 1989, I did a handshake deal with the owner at the time. And, I came back a couple days later and we got all the paperwork done and it was done. He's like, when me and Michael Parsons met in March in my office, we had a handshake deal. I'm not going to go back on that. And so it's like, in a sense, I understand where he's coming from in that instance, but I think there's also some times where he's a little bit unreasonable in the sense of like, hey, he's got an agent for a reason, and those things matter. And when an agent gets involved to get the things across the finish line, you have to be willing to accept that. And I think sometimes there's a little bit of stubbornness involved with that. A stubborn individual, absolutely. I think that's something that people get right. But I think when it comes to his business savvy and certainly how he uses things, that's another thing that people get right 100%.
So, it seems to me that I used to always defend Jerry, especially when we were winning Super Bowls and stuff. And then you start like, we can't really reference that because he keeps referencing, oh, Emmitt Smith held out for 2 games and I
Yeah,
finally got him signed up for that. Well, that was 30 years ago. The whole world is different since then.
yeah,
And I don't know if you can reference things. That was a whole different NFL too than it is now. The players are different now. The whole scheme of things are different. And so, do you think sometimes he gets caught in a generational deal at times? Like he's still looking at when things were going well in the 90s as opposed to here we are, over 30 years later, and it doesn't work that way anymore?
That's an interesting one, and I don't know if I have a correct answer for that one, Billy. But I will say that, one of the biggest things that has kept him from succeeding in the current era has been the salary cap.
Yeah.
And he was a big proponent of the salary
Yeah.
cap back in the 90s. And it's very fascinating to look back on. And that era when he's talking about Emmitt Smith, that didn't have a salary cap. And I think there's probably
Right.
maybe an answer intertwined here with that one, because he looks back on that Emmitt Smith situation and be like, well, he held out for 2 games, and but we eventually paid him. There's no salary cap involved there. There's a salary cap involved here, and that makes this one a little bit more interesting in the sense of like, okay, hey, if you do put a $41 million price tag on Micah Parsons every single year for the next 4 or 5 years, you have to factor that in with a 290 million or whatever that'll look like down the road salary cap. And whereas, back then you didn't have to. So
No,
like,
you're right.
was he more stubborn then or was he more stubborn now? I don't
Mhm.
know. I think there's a case to be made for both sides probably.
And that's what I was saying. It's so different then than it is now. I don't know. You can
Yeah.
compare it as he does, but and then another part of me says, well, he knows that he's got to get this price to where he wants it to sign the other guys and to keep up with the
Yeah.
cap and do whatever he has to do to keep it there. Because as fans, all we want is just sign him,
Yeah.
and that's easy for people that are outside saying, just sign him. We don't know the numbers. We don't care about the numbers. Just sign him. Well, it ain't that easy. And
Yeah.
you see it across the NFL with other owners too. But Jerry's the only one, though, that is in the media. It was with, like you said, uses the media to help
Yeah.
him as opposed to all these other owners. You never hear from them when they're,
Yeah.
the players are holding out and all that.
And the very fascinating aspect too is he is the only owner general manager in the league.
Yes.
So his decisions do not have any ramifications at the end of the day.
Right.
There is only one other owner in the NFL that has an acting GM type of role. Granted, they have a GM, but he's an acting GM type of role. Do you happen to know what the other team is? And I'll maybe try to phrase it this way. Think of the other team in the NFL that has so many issues with contracts, it feels like every year as well.
I can't think of, would it be the Niners?
The Cincinnati Bengals.
Bengals. Okay. Yeah.
So
Yeah. They have a lot of issues right now. Yeah.
they have issues with players and contracts all the time. And
That's
you
true.
wonder if it's the owner, general manager kind of intertwining type of
Good
role.
point.
Because when you have when you are your own boss, essentially, you're not, wheeling and dealing. Whereas these other 30 NFL GMs, they would have signed Michael Parsons back in February because their job's on the line.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Do you watch movies like Draft Day? Does it drive you crazy? Have you ever seen that movie?
It's funny because I do have a tradition now of watching draft day on the first day of the draft every year just to
Yeah.
laugh and then go into, my normal day.
Right.
I was like, whatever happens today, it will not be as dumb as that.
No, exactly. That is I remember going to the movie going, this is so off base.
Yeah.
It was so far off base. It was funny.
It was good. I still watch
It
it.
was interesting. It was good. Jay, have you seen it? Have you ever seen
I've
that movie?
not. No, no.
Oh, it's
It's
if
one
you're
of
a
those that
football
hasn't-
fan, you're going to sit there and go, wait, no, what? He
Not
just
based in
pick-
reality. Huh?
If I remember right, he took one first round pick and turned it into 3 first round picks
Yeah.
somehow, and it was crazy. But anyway, okay, quickly we'll stay on the Cowboys just real quick, and then I want to jump into something else. Biggest surprise so far at camp?
Ooh, that's a good one. Biggest surprise. I would say the defensive ends not named Micah Parsons, they're
Mhm.
going to be really damn good this year. Sorry, my dog's waggling in the background here.
I love it.
That is going to be really fun to watch. And this defense as a whole, not good, but the defensive ends and their pass rush unit is fantastic. And it's going to be a really fun show, whether Micah Parsons is on the field or not. If he is, I mean, this is going to be one of the best pass rushing units in the NFL, I believe. You have Sam Williams coming off of a torn ACL. He looks great. He still has the explosiveness, and he's probably added about 5 to 10 pounds of really good weight to his upper body. He needed that for a little bit more strength with his upper half. And you see that translating onto the field. The second round pick, the rookie Donovan Ezaraku out of Boston College, I'm a huge draft guy. I'm a draft nut. And when the process was happening, this was one of my favorite pass rushers in the entire college football last year. And when the Cowboys drafted him at 44, I was like, man, this is a steal. And it has certainly proven to be that so far. You talk about athleticism, bend, flexibility, getting up and around the edge. He's got a huge arsenal of pass rush moves. We were actually just talking to the Cowboys defensive line coach today, and they're just blown away by what he's been able to do this early on. And you look at some of the other guys that they had. They had the big physical run stoppers. They have Marshawn Nealon, their second round pick from last year. They brought in Peyton Turner. They added Dante Fowler in free agency. He had 10.5 sacks last year for Washington. This is going to be a really fun pass rushing unit. That's probably been the biggest surprise so far, is just how effective they've been.
You worried about the secondary with obviously with injuries, and then we got some guys in there that you're like starting, and they were not even, it seems like, on the board at one point.
Yeah, the corner position is really tough, and they've hit on a beautiful evaluation on Kaiir Elam. I think they've hit on him. They acquired him from the Buffalo Bills in a trade over the offseason. He was a former first round pick of the Bills, never really worked out, had his job taken by a 6th round pick. But since he's been in Dallas, he's been great. He's had an awesome camp. He's probably going to end up starting week 1 next to Deron Bland. Now the nickel corner spot, that's where things are going to get a little tense. You have Keemon Hall. He's a North Texas grad. He's been in the league about 6-7 years, but he's mostly bounced around practice squads, and he feels like he's finding his footing in Dallas. Don't get me wrong, but it's like, how reliable do you think he could be as a starting nickel? That's going to be tough. And so you're waiting for Trayvon Diggs to get healthy. You're waiting for their 3rd round pick, Savone Revel, to get healthy. Those guys probably will not be ready for the start of the season. So the corner position, it has a big red flag. And then their starting safeties, they just have money tied into those guys, and those contracts just need to run up. And Donovan Wilson's contract will run up at the end of this next year. Malik Hooker's contract will run up after 2 seasons, but and they're not bad players. Don't get me wrong. It's just I feel like they definitely could be better at the safety position, especially when you factor in that the health of the corner spot, they're going to have to pick up some slack.
You excited about Pickens? Did you like that trade?
Yeah. It was a risk that I think was worth taking at the time, and I think it's working out great. And I was able to talk to some people back in Pittsburgh with some Rockwall connections. Y'all can maybe put the pieces together there about the time that Pickens had in Pittsburgh. His teammates loved him, and it was mainly clashes that he had with the coaching staff, clashes that he had with front office, and it led to a messy split in Pittsburgh. The media didn't help his case either, right. And whenever he arrived at Dallas, I think he was a little gun shy, to do anything. And now you're really starting to see him come out of his shell a little bit, and I can't find. You could send the best CIA agent at Quantico into the Cowboys training camp right now to find one bad thing to say about George Pickens, and you won't find it.
Really?
And that's where we've been. Now, granted, let this team start 0-3 and he only has about 6 receptions in those 3 games, then we'll see. There's going to be some adversity you're going to have to deal with there. Yeah. But I am excited about what that combination is going to look like. And from a schematic standpoint, pairing George Pickens, this straight line outside receiver, granted, he does have a little bit of a route tree, but you pair that with CeeDee Lamb, who's this versatile weapon that can move in and out and really open each other up. I think from a pure football standpoint, it is a beautiful marriage, and I think it's going to work out great.
Well, and it's also been good to see Tolbert. He picked it up last year, and then Mingo apparently is doing well in camp.
He is, yep.
So that's promising. And then last thing is, I'm a little worried about the offensive line. It looks like we have talent, but we can't keep people healthy.
Yeah. At the left tackle position is going to be interesting. Tyler Guyton, the first round pick out of Oklahoma in 2024. Didn't have a great year last year. I mean, that's no secret. And he really needed these reps at training camp to, catch up to speed and, get to a starting caliber type of left tackle. And he had a strong start to camp. He really did. And then he suffered a knee injury that's going to keep him out for about 4 to 6 weeks. I think he's going to end up playing by week 1. If I had to imagine, talking to a couple of people today, there's some hope there. But, you really wish he had these reps and these opportunities during training camp to be ready when week 1 comes around. Instead, he's going to have to be, getting his feet under him still whenever week 1 comes around. But you look around the offensive line, I think it's building quite nicely. Mm-hmm. At left guard, I think you have one of the best guards in the NFL in Tyler Smith. At center, you have Cooper Beebe, who I think is just a dog. I think he's probably a top 10 center in the NFL. At right guard, you have the rookie Tyler Booker out of Alabama. Now, there's some rookie bumps and bruises that he's dealt with at camp for sure, but you could see the the maturity, the athleticism, the power that he has at that right guard spot. It's really impressive. I think give it a couple of years, and he's going to be another guy in that interior for them. And then right tackle Terrence Steele. I think there's a lot of questions there,
Yeah.
but this coaching staff change and then bringing in offensive coordinator Clayton Adams from the Arizona Cardinals. He was their offensive line coach in Arizona. I think it's going to benefit a guy like Terrence Steele quite a bit.
And you being a Texas fan and all that, Jadon Blue,
Yeah.
is he looking good?
Man, I think this guy is starting to shape up to be RB1. Now, granted, it's
Really?
early, but when you talk to the rest of the beat, you talk to a lot of the guys, you talk to people on the coaching staff. There's a lot of optimism and hype around Jaden Blue right now. He's got the freshest legs. He's got the most speed. I think he just needs to really put it together from an NFL standpoint, as far as schematics and understanding the offense. Once he does that, I think he's going to get a lot of burn this year.
How well do you know Britt Brown?
That's funny. I kind of know him well.
Okay.
Why do you ask?
Because I grew up with him. We both are from Lampasas.
Really?
Yeah, he was a senior when I was a freshman, and I don't even know if he'll remember me. I know
That's funny.
I talked to him years ago, but I don't remember. But every time, I just remember Brett at high school and all that kind of stuff, and it was a little town, so everybody knew everybody.
Yeah.
And I seem to remember Brett being. I thought he was in the high school play, and ask him if he was, because I seem to remember he was. I may be thinking of somebody else, but I thought Brett was in it.
You know what's funny, Billy? You know what's funny? I wasn't the story I was telling earlier was about Britt Brown.
Oh, that's so funny. It entered my mind. It entered my mind when you said that. Okay.
That is hilarious. I was thinking in my head, I was like, yeah, I'll just say it. Yeah, that story was about Britt Brown.
Okay. All right. Yeah.
I was like,
Yeah.
how did he put the pieces together? Did he know?
It entered my mind when you said it,
Yeah.
and I didn't know Britt super well growing up. Like I said, we were 4 years apart,
Yeah.
but I knew him. And,
Yeah.
But yeah, if he sees you again, ask him if he remembers me. I bet you,
I definitely will.
but we'll see if he does.
I definitely will.
That's so
That's
funny.
funny. That's funny.
Oh. Jay, I've crawled you out again. Jay always
That's all
has
right.
the more worldly kind of questions, the more emotional, like bring you to tears kind of questions.
No. You've got some pictures you're going to show, Billy, right?
Yeah, well, there was one I want to show of. Did you get to talk to Tom Brady? I think you took the picture. Did you take the picture or whatever with with Tom Brady there? I think he was
Yeah.
talking to Micah and Diggs.
Yeah, he was, and you can kind of see me in the corner to the right side of
Okay.
of that photo, and but ended up chopping it up with those guys, and that was cool. I wasn't the biggest Tom Brady fan growing up, but
Me neither.
meeting him was cool.
And then let's show this photo here that Jay, that it's of David Sweet and of Nick, and I think there's a couple of them. And that was what Nick was talking about when he was there, and he was the first one that we really. Most of the time when the kids would join us, the high school kids, they just wanted to kind of be there, and they'd be like gophers, and they'd watch, they'd help us out a little bit with the equipment. And Nick was the first one that came in and just knew what to do, and that we could hand it to him. It was in fact, the only high school kid that I can remember that we could just say, Nick, do halftime. We're going to go
Yep.
get a drink. We're going to go get a Coke and get some cookies in the press box and see if there's any leftover food from the buffet. And Nick could handle it. And so that's a couple of the photos there with David, which I think, you're probably at that point even taller than David. I think everybody's taller than David. So
Yeah, that was many pounds ago for me too. So I was maybe a little bit more lean. It just made me look taller.
Have
And
you
then
by chance made it back to a Rockwall game since you've left at all?
Yes, I have. In
Have
fact,
you?
I've been doing some broadcasting for Frisco ISD for the last couple of years because it's nearby, and it's a good opportunity to be able to teach some kids as well, which has been really rewarding. But it was week 11 last year, and Rockwall Heath was fighting for playoff eligibility. They needed to beat Forney in that final game, and if y'all remember, there was a rain delay that night.
Yes.
And it got pushed. The kickoff time got pushed to about 9 p.m. And I got done with my game in Frisco. I got pouring down rain. And I got done with my game in Frisco, and I look on Sports Day, and it's only second quarter over at Wilkerson Sanders. I'm like, you know what? I'm going to run over there. And so I ran over there, and I sat in the top corner of Wilkerson Sanders, hoodie on, and it was pouring down rain. But I watched Javian Osborne, the running back for Forney, run up and down Heath for that second half. I think when I got there, it was something like 10-7, and then the final score was like 49-47. So
Yeah.
if you want points, just invite me. I'll be around.
That game, I remember we were at North Forney in their brand new stadium, and it was that rain delay and everything. But it's so funny to me on these high school games, while we're waiting, you're sitting there and it's not too far away. He's playing. It's like, how are they playing? We can't even see the field, but they're playing. So we go off balance. But that game was crazy because obviously we were interested in that too, to see if Heath, that's the first time that Rodney had not made the playoffs, Rodney Webb, in like 20 years. And I get, he's my neighbor. He lives across the street. And so me and Rodney are very good friends. And I love giving him hell about it. And in fact, our last podcast was the Rodney, head coach of Heath, and we had Trey Brooks for Rockwall, and we had Colvin for our Roy City. And at one point, I did ask them, raise your hand if you were in the playoffs last year. And of course, only one coach could raise his hand. But I love giving Rodney hell about that. Well, how much do you still follow the Hawks and all that?
Every week? Every
really?
week. I mean, I'm a Texas high school football nerd at the core of who I am, and it'll always be a part of who I am, and especially the schools that I either went to or family went to. I have a group of about 10 schools that I follow pretty religiously that have either ties to me or ties to my family, and both Rockwall schools have found their way into that group, including Rockwall High. Even though I was raised to despise Rockwall High, it was always Rockwall High that I found myself on the bus to road games with, or in the booth with Billy Quinton and David Sweet on Friday night. So I was like, you know what? These guys aren't so bad either. So I root for Rockwall 364 days of the year.
That's great. That's great. Yeah. I think it's going to be a very good year for Heath, and I think Rockwall will have a good year, but I think Heath is going to have a very good year. I think
that's great to hear.
Talent. Yeah. And they got, as much as it was hard for me when Rodney went over to the enemy,
I would imagine.
And when I walked into his house, I knew it before he knew I knew it. And it was pretty funny because he all of a sudden figured out that I knew something, and I can't say what we said on this. But there were words exchanged, but we have a ball with it now. I'm sure you remember the game. I don't know if you had already graduated or not, and it's the game where, and I'm forgetting his name, the great running back that was there. Not it was later years, but Heath won on the last play against Rockwall.
Yeah, so that was my senior year, Tanner McAllister.
Couldn't remember.
Yeah, he's playing for the Broncos now, and
yes, he is.
Cowboys play the Broncos week 6.
Yep.
And we have already been talking. We're going to get a picture in the tunnel that day. I'm looking forward to it.
Well, and then also we have Deshaun Elliott is he still with where's he at now? I know he was with the Steelers.
Yeah, he's still with the Steelers. He actually just got a big contract extension this offseason, doing really well up there in Pittsburgh.
And I think Anthony Orji might be with the Broncos now too.
Last I checked, he was with the Saints.
But he wasn't. I think he's gone to the Broncos.
He's gone to the Broncos now. So. That's good to hear. Good to hear.
I don't know for sure, but I think so.
Yeah.
Because we had him join us last year. He was still with the Saints when he joined us in the booth last year. But that game that McAllister, if you remember that game, it was a controversial. The clock was out, and then there was this injury that stopped the clock, if you remember, and that allowed Heath to line up and get the ball to McAllister for him to score the winning touchdown. Rodney, for years, just like that, hurt him. This was the bane of his. And now when I bring it up, he goes, I feel like that might be one of the best plays ever as far as Heath goes. Now he's a big fan of that play as the Heath coach.
And you're like, aren't you my neighbor? Like, you bled orange. You remember that, right?
I always tell this story. I always tell it. When he got it, he came over. He goes, "You still going to root for me when for the Heath? Obviously not against Rockwall, but other games." I go, "Did Benedict Arnold ask the Patriots to root for him when he jumped over to the Redcoats? I don't think so. I don't think that's the way it works." But no, I love that guy, and that'll be fun. And as you know, in your experience, you've gone to a million high school games. You've been to a ton of football games. Where would you rate the Rockwall Heath game? Because I feel like it's one of the best experiences out there.
The game in general, or that specific one in 2017?
No, the game in general, but that one, just the game in general, just the intensity and all that stuff.
It's funny because the more I worked in college football recruiting and the more schools and small towns that I saw in Texas high school football, there are so many rich historic rivalries in the state, and some that don't even get talked about just because like the teams aren't ever that great. I think about like Edinburgh and Edinburgh Vea down in the valley. Like that's a crazy one that happens every year. There's some schools in McAllen too that bring out a ton of fans.
Yeah.
Shiner and Refugio, whenever they link up, there's always more people at that game somehow than the population of both of those towns combined. And that's not an exaggeration. Like it's wild how it happens that way. I would still put Rockwall and Rockwall Heath probably in the top 3 of statewide rivalries, just because of how even though it is big school DFW Metroplex, the town still shows up for it. And I think that's what's unique about Rockwall in general is like, yeah, it's the smallest county in Texas, but that small county, like it really does come out on Friday nights. And you do see that. Yeah. And it really made me fall in love with Rockwall that second year I was there in high school, whenever I was trying to reject that it existed my sophomore year, the junior year and senior year, when I finally set in and accepted it and looked around, I was like, you know what, it's a good place for my feet to be at right now. And shoot, it's why I moved back. And I'm excited to move back when I get back from training camp. I'm counting down the days for it.
I love that. Yeah. You sit there and the thing I think that makes it good though, is also it's still 2 towns, even though it's 2 schools.
Yeah.
Because I grew up in the Hill Country and it was town versus town. That's what made the rivalries. It wasn't just the game itself. It's we don't like that town. We don't like that. And not necessarily that we have it here because we all know and I think that's what makes this one unique is most of the time I didn't know people. Ours was Lampasas versus Burnet. And it was we didn't like Burnet people. I didn't want to go to Burnet. They didn't want to come here. But here we all know each other.
Yeah.
It's also this rivalry of like, well, we used to play together in the Y and now we're going against each other, and all that stuff. And
it's the most
good.
It's the most sibling rivalry, I think, in the state.
Good point. Yeah.
Yeah. Because like even if you think about like my mom, she went to formerly Robert E. Lee High School in Tyler, now Tyler Legacy. Yeah. And, their big rival was John Tyler. Yes. My dad's family went to John Tyler. I mean, so it was cursed that my parents ended up together. And it's probably why they divorced. Who knows?
I was going to ask you, is that the reason for the divorce? Yeah, so we don't have to blame you because I would think you were the reason for the divorce.
No, they spawned a Chapel Hill offspring. So it worked out great for me. But, I mean, those two schools hated each other and they're in the same school district, same town, they didn't even have a town divide at the end of the day. Those 2 schools hated each other. I mean, there's some really gruesome, brutal stories about that rivalry back in the 80s and 90s. And, I think about that with like Rockwall and Rockwall Heath. And it was like, yeah, that crowd gets loud on Friday nights, but they're all going to the same Whataburger after the game.
Exactly. That's it. That's the difference. Yeah. Yeah. But, and it's a different world out there at ball games in East Texas too, which I love.
It is. There's a story of, my cousin, he played on the 1989 state championship team at Chapel Hill, and his senior year, their big rival was White House. Yes. And White House, the day before the game, they broke into the Chapel Hill Stadium and they put like these little, I don't even know what they would be, but they're like little seeds that like burn the ground, and they burned a W in the middle of their football field. Mm-hmm. And so they played the next day with a big burnt W right in the middle of that Chapel Hill football stadium. And but the Chapel Hill won the state championship that year. So, we got the last laugh.
No, we would go to Longview. And those people are so nice, but as they're helping us and taking us to the booth or getting you something, they would tell you, we're going to kick your ass. Yeah. Just know that. Yeah. Just know. But we love that you're here. We want to get you anything you want. I hope you enjoy your stay. Yeah. And we're going to kick the shit out of you. And they would. You know? And we've never beaten them in my time. Yeah. And that was kind of a cool thing, that they were this little nice lady is telling me we're going to beat the shit out of y'all tonight.
And what's funny about Longview is they're so hospitable. They have some of the best press box food in the state. It's a fantastic facility. I have family that went to Longview as well. And I got to know John King, their head coach, really well after when I got into my recruiting days. And John King is well aware that there is a John King Boulevard not far from Wilkerson Sanders Stadium. And he reminds me of that quite often. He's like, well, they wouldn't have named a street after me down there if they didn't know who I was. And so
I've joked about that on the air. I'm like, why are we naming a street after the Longview coach? This seems odd to me.
He is well aware.
Especially a coach that's beating the hell out of us all these days.
Something that just caught my attention, which is so funny. The broadcasters we've spoken to, Billy, yourself, several others. Mm-hmm. It's so funny. You know what always comes up? Press box food. It's like y'all know every school but the press box food. You talk about Highland Park.
Oh yeah,
they bring you the
that is huge, Jay. It is the most important part.
When you said that, I was like,
Yeah.
is this like the thing that
Oh, it is. It is.
It's a big deal.
Yeah.
And Rockwall is Rockwall and Rockwall Heath both are very fortunate because not only is Wilkerson Sanders great, but so is Royce City, and so they get to go to Royce City. So is Longview. Longview is great.
Yeah.
But I would if I have to put a number one, I'm sorry, it would have to be Waxahachie. And I don't know if y'all have had the pleasure of going to
No.
Waxahachie at any
Every
point.
time we've played them, it's been neutral.
You need to nudge some people, Billy, to get a road game at Waxahachie one of these days. Yeah.
Okay. I would put up now. They wouldn't let us eat it because they were being jerks, but Highland Park would have Nick and Sam's would be the buffet.
Oh,
But
not
we
for
went
y'all.
over and we went over to
Not for
eat
y'all.
it, and they literally told us, no, that's not for you. Yours
Yeah.
were there, and it was a styrofoam cup of some chopped beef, a loaf of bread, and mustard.
I'm
That's what
surprised
ours
that they
was.
had. I'm surprised they had that much attention divided to you guys stealing press box food
We
when
were-
they had the rest of the stadium workers turning off the lights in the stadium. Like
Exactly.
that's
Exactly.
a crazy thing.
Exactly. That is the one place that you go to that you know it is going to be difficult. It is
Yeah.
going to be a
Yeah.
nightmare. And
That is
they
a true home field advantage.
It is. It is one of the
Yeah.
biggest ones. But yeah, food is important, Jay. And when you
Okay.
come up to the booth this year, you'll get to partake. But you got to get there pretty quick because that food goes. But
It's
I'll tell you
gone.
what, Kay, who's in charge of it for Rockwall ISD, is outstanding. She came over from Mesquite, and she is outstanding with the food. It's like Babes. We have Babes. We get
Yeah.
great Mexican food.
Yeah.
It's the best. It's the best.
Yeah.
And so yeah, that's a great thing. And one other thing I wanted to touch on. You mentioned in one of the things you sent me, or I looked, it was I think you wrote your first article for Fort Worth Star Telegram. You kind of did your background a little bit, and
Yeah.
you talked about GJ Kinney.
Yep.
And so I'm a huge GJ Kinney guy. I'm a Texas State grad.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so I'm a huge GJ Kinney guy. I love what he's done.
Yeah.
And so tell me why you are fond of him and how that works out.
Yeah, so when I was growing up in East Texas, it was every Friday night, my dad and I we found ourselves at a game, and it would be a Chapel Hill game, it would be a John Tyler game, or it would be Longview, or it would be Arp or Tatum or Canton. And Canton was a squad that we found ourselves at quite a bit because of GJ Kinney. He was quarterback at that time. His dad was the head coach, and back I think this was going into GJ's either junior or senior year. A disgruntled parent walked into the athletic facility and shot his dad, and I'm not trying to make light of any situation here, but it felt like 9/11 for East Texas. I mean, that's how serious it was, oh my God, Coach Kenny just got shot. And everyone was at their news station, and the news stations in Tyler were all like helicopter over the situation. I mean, like it was a heist. And whenever the word got out that he ended up living, I mean, it was unreal. And so that first Friday night back at Canton, whenever the season had started a few months later, I think his dad was still recovering, so he wasn't coaching, but his dad was there. And that was one of the early moments I think I had as a high school football appreciator of like, yeah, this stuff it's a little bit deeper than just what happens in those 48 minutes, like
Right.
it's a cool moment. And then GJ Kinney also happened to be really badass. And so following GJ's career from when he was there, when he went to Texas, and then he finished at Tulsa, then he went to the Jets, and he had a little bit of a brief stint in the NFL. And then he was the offensive coordinator at Hawaii when I first got involved with a college football recruiting. And we started exchanging messages back and forth. I would send him kids that I would see, and it was really cool. And I never told GJ that, like, hey man, I watched you a lot when I was a kid, but one of these days I think I will. One of my best friends this offseason just got the general manager job at Texas State, and he's already told me, come up there for a home game one of these days, and I'll introduce you to GJ. And I'm like, man, it's like meeting the president. Like, jeez, that's my
call
hero.
Because I want to go with you. Call me because
Yeah.
I want to get down there and see if GJ can if there's an opening in the broadcast booth down there at some point.
Yeah.
But they got some good ones already. But no, but I love since he's won everywhere he's gone.
Yep.
And he's got such a unique kind of personality where he just is. There's times when he's interviewed, you can tell he does not give a shit, and he's going to just be blunt and all that. But then watching those teams, I just love watching the way the team is. And I hate it being, now that we're Pac-12, because of course we're very, Pacific Coast, Texas State, of course.
Of course. The beaches in San Marcos.
Yes, exactly. So, but I know somebody's going to snatch him up if he keeps winning. We don't get to keep our guys, and so that frustrates me too. But yeah, I thought that was funny when you were mentioning, because obviously he's known in Mesquite,
Yep,
and a number of people here in Rockwall knew him when he was growing up in Mesquite too, or when he was
yep,
coaching. I think he coached in Mesquite
he did.
a
Yeah,
little bit. Yeah, yeah. So yeah, that's so
yeah.
funny. That's so funny. Jay, you got anything else? I've covered everything I want to cover.
Well, like I said, I do home loans for a living.
Yeah.
And so I talk to people and what they do for 25 years. 99% of people do not like their jobs. So anytime I talk to somebody like you, it's just you have no idea what a great thing that is, that
Yeah.
you followed that passion. It wasn't easy. I know it wasn't easy.
Yeah.
And we're proud of you here in Rockwall, man.
Yeah.
I appreciate it. I appreciate that. It's a blessing, and I try to look at where my feet are every day, because even on my worst days, somebody would kill for my worst day, and I try to remember
Yes.
that. And it's I had the summer going into my senior year, I lost my father, and my father was a big part of what I wanted to do in my sports journalism career, and I know deep down that even on my worst day, if I'm complaining, or if I'm not wanting to go to work, or trying to struggling to get out of bed, I know he'd kick my ass if he was here. So
Yeah.
I try to remember that part of it, and I try to be grateful and thankful and appreciative of it, because I do know what it looks like when you do not love your job, and I definitely love it, and I hope it lasts as long as God will allow it to.
Yeah,
You've
and
experienced a
that's
little bit of that at making sandwiches, some other things.
right.
Exactly.
I mean, you had two big opportunities right there that you had to decide that fork in the road. Do I want to do
Yeah.
sandwiches? Do I want to cover the Cowboys? And
It was a tough decision. Don't get
I
me
bet.
wrong.
You sit there, you wrestle with it, you got to pray on it, all these
Yeah.
things.
Yeah.
But no, Jay is right. I love and that's what I tell my kids, both of them. Don't worry about the money. The money will come. Just do what
Yep.
you enjoy. Do what you
Yep.
love. And I feel for you. Me and my dad were big. I love sports because my dad,
Yeah.
same as you.
Yep.
And my dad passed away when I was younger. Not it was after high school and stuff. But things I get now, I get to do broadcast. He doesn't get to be a
Yeah.
part of it, and you
Yeah.
are sure the same part. Like, man, my
Yeah.
dad would love this that
Yeah.
I'm doing all this stuff. You
Yeah.
know,
Did your dad get to see some of your success?
He did early on, and what's funny is probably the biggest thing that I had accomplished before he had passed was being able to be on those football broadcasts with you guys. And so, like, that's
Yeah.
that's a and I don't say that lightly. I mean that with, like, because he would listen to every single second, and he would critique it, and by the time I got down back to the field for the second half of the game, he would have feedback, and I'd be like, man, that's crazy. I was like, get
That's
off my ass
awesome.
for once. But no,
Yeah.
it's that he got to see some of that, which is really cool. But he always believed that I could be right here. So it's every time I do accomplish something, or every time I do take a next step, I feel his presence 100%.
man, that's great. That is great. Okay, we always ask these questions real quick before we sign off. Like, if you could have any superhero power, what would it be?
Man, oh man, that's a good one. Probably, oh man, that one's tough. I'd probably say the ability to. Gosh, I'm going to come up with the most cliche one here. I already know.
No, but if it's good, it's
Uh,
good.
those this is not necessarily a superpower, because people have this, but the ability to just eat and drink whatever you want, and you're still just ripped, and you got great metabolism. That's a
That is a
superpower to
good
me.
one.
That's not fair. That's
That
not
is a
fair.
great.
That's
That
not
is a
fair.
good one.
I
That is a
tell you what,
good
when I
one.
went to college and I got my freshman 15, it happened per semester, and I was like, you know what,
Yeah.
this is some BS. And
I
so
know.
I've gotten a little bit more handle on my eating diets these days, and so it just sucks whenever I have to eat a carrot,
I
and
know.
I'm just like, why?
It
Just like, what am I
does.
doing?
And you're trying to convince yourself, no, this is good. This is
There's a
this is good.
videographer for the Cowboys, and his name is Jason. He was like an all-state basketball player in Oklahoma growing up, and really good guy. And I've gotten to know him really well at this training camp, because we're just always around each other. This guy eats like a 4-year-old, and like he's drinking Dr. Pepper every single day. He's like, yeah, I get like a kidney stone a year because I drink so much soda. And this guy is like ripped, and he doesn't work out. He doesn't do anything. I'm just like, man, I hate you. I like
Yeah.
deep
Yeah.
down inside, I have resentment for you. And so that would be my superpower. It's just great
That is a good
metabolism.
one, though. I
That
might
is
pick
a
that
good
one
one.
because I've gone from invisibility, which would be good, but then Jay convinced me you're going to see or hear things that you would not want to hear
Yeah.
and see.
Yeah.
I thought that's a good point. So then I went to being fast, like or flying, where you could just fly.
Yeah. Yeah.
and just go
Yeah.
places. So I think, but the eating and not having it do anything to you, because in my age
Yeah.
now, that's the deal.
Yeah.
Because
Ooh, that would be nice.
we all grew up skinny kind of, and you could do whatever you want. That's a God playing tricks on you. You're like, I can do this.
Yeah.
Well, and as me and Billy, as we get older, it's not only the weight, it's blood pressure.
Oh my
You
gosh.
know, it's just, if none of that mattered, God,
Well,
that'd
let
be
me tell
great.
you this. Here's how old I am. This is really personal. We may have to edit this out, but I'm going
I know
So-
where you're going.
I go to the doctor. I'm having problems going to the bathroom as older
Yeah.
men do.
Yeah.
It doesn't go as fast. So I
Yeah.
finally go, and the doctor comes back and says, "You have a very large prostate." That's when you know you've gotten old. When the doctor, and then I had this I'm kind of proud of that. Really?
Is
How
that a
big?
compliment? Is that a
Is this
compliment?
something that, can I hit
Right
on
here,
the-
Billy.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. How big is he? He goes, it's one of the largest I've seen. Well, all right.
Okay.
Wait till my wife finds out.
Yes. I said, if I wasn't married, I could be like, how would you like to sleep with a guy that has the prostate the size of a football? How would you like that? But now I have to go get it fixed. And
Yeah.
it's when you know you're old is when prostate comes up in the conversation a lot, and that's a problem. That is a
Yeah.
big
Yes,
problem.
yes.
Yeah.
Okay,
It's
favorite
so-
movie.
Favorite
There you go.
movie. Gosh, that's a good one too. Interstellar. And it always used to be
Really?
Shawshank Redemption.
Yeah.
Interstellar took the cake for me about 2 years ago when I watched it again. And yeah, it's Interstellar. That's
Okay, I
a-
saw that recently. I liked it, but to me, it's no Shawshank. But it was too confusing.
Yeah.
There was too many things happening.
I love McConaughey.
Huh?
Yeah.
I love McConaughey.
I do
McConaughey's
too.
my guy.
I
Yeah.
do too. I do too. I do too. I'd ask the coaches about this. Best football movie, because I feel like it's hard to
Okay.
make a good football movie.
Best football movie. Oh gosh. It is hard to make a good football movie.
Yeah.
There's not any
Let's break
I
that
don't-
into two. Let's break it into two. Most authentic and
Okay.
favorite.
Okay.
Most authentic. Most authentic. Does Jerry Maguire count?
Yeah,
So,
that
so.
counts.
Yeah. Okay, Jerry
That's
Maguire,
good.
I think would probably be the most authentic.
Mhm.
I think the best for me though would probably be, uh, probably Any Given Sunday. I'd probably have to
Really?
go with I like Any Given Sunday. It's
Okay.
a good one for me. It used to be The Blind Side. It did, and up until like 2 years ago when I found out that like Michael Orr's story was like
Right.
nothing about
Yeah.
that.
It kind
I
of
was like,
ruined
"Damn,
everything.
That kind of ruined
Yeah.
it.
Yeah,
It
that's
really
my
ruined
son. Cash was the same way. He loved that movie. Now he's like, what the hell? It doesn't
Yeah.
really true.
Did you
Yeah.
ever hear how that ended? Did he win the lawsuit?
I don't know.
I had to quit paying attention to it because I was like,
Yeah.
maybe one day I can watch it again.
Yeah.
Well, it's like the Cowboys thing. You don't want to
It
know
is.
their workings
You
are.
don't wanna
tell
know
me
it
that.
is.
It was a good movie. Yeah, because most of the movies, the football movies, we talked about it, when they're making blocks, guys are getting flipped,
Yeah.
and it's
Yeah.
very bad play calling, but it works,
Yeah.
and stuff like that. And we laughed about if they're in the huddle,
Yeah.
they can just have conversations for like, it seems like an hour while they're in the
Yeah.
huddle. It's like, dude, you got 30 seconds,
Yeah.
but they're talking about life and doing
Yeah.
things and all that.
It's
Of course-
second and 45
Right.
because you've gotten 10
Right.
delay of games.
Right. You've had 10 penalties since this conversation started. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, that's funny. And then we haven't asked this one in a while, Jay. Your spirit animal. Mine's a slug.
Spirit animal. It'd probably be an owl because
Okay.
I am a night owl at
Okay.
the
That's a
end of the
good
day, and I would like to think that people like to hear when I talk, and owls, people like hearing them, and they're very subtle creatures, but when they want to be known, they are known. But
Yeah.
I'd probably go with an owl, and
And
no one
like you
messes with an
said-
owl, right?
I like that. You said this
Yeah.
before where you said if you do get angry enough,
Yes.
an
Yes.
owl will do that. An owl
For
will
sure.
once it gets
Yeah,
past
he
that
will.
point, an owl
Yeah.
will come at you. And then one more I'm always interested in. Is there a conspiracy theory that you are on board with?
Oh man, how much time do we have?
So do you like a lot
Okay.
of conspiracies, or are you against them, or what's your deal?
It depends on what it is. It depends
Yeah.
on what it is. And I'm specifically enthralled with sports conspiracy theories. And the one I really do believe is that Wilt Chamberlain did not have a 100-point game. I think I believe that one. I believe
I
that one.
agree. I agree because there was
Yeah.
no evidence of it.
There's no evidence.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's-
Just
they
him
have
holding
high
that piece
school
of
footage.
paper.
They have high school footage of Wilt Chamberlain. You're telling me they don't have a game in 1964?
Yeah.
I don't know, guys. I
Yeah.
don't know.
Yeah, I agree. See, mine right now in sports is that the NBA forced the Mavericks to make that Luka trade.
Yeah,
And that's why we ended up getting the first pick. It was a trade-off. That's why we got the lottery and we got the first pick.
But surely those things happen, right?
You would think so.
More than
you
we
would
know.
think so.
More
You
than
would
we
think
know.
so.
Yeah.
I mean, that was just not, it didn't make sense. And so it was bad. And so, I think that's it. But man, I can't tell you how much we appreciate it. I know you're busy. I love that you're coming to us from Cowboys from Oxnard, Cowboys camp. That is so cool. And so happy for all your success.
I appreciate it, guys. Thank you all for having me. Literally anytime. It's been a pleasure. It's been a pleasure.
When you go see GJ, give me a call.
I will. I'll be like, hey, you have a really big fan in this guy named Billy Quinton.
Exactly. And so anyway, but just don't hope he doesn't treat me like Britt Brown.
Exactly.
That's so funny. I can't believe
that is so funny. Whenever you brought him up, I was like, how did he know?
And you didn't tell. You didn't give a clue.
Oh, that's so funny. Man, we appreciate it, Nick.
Thanks, guys.
See ya.
Bye.
Dallas Cowboys. We are the Cowboys.